for a breakthrough, you can open up and just receive. 'Cause what he's pouring out is nothing you've ever seen. So hello peace, hello joy, hello love, hello strength, hello hope. It's a new horizon. Hello peace, hello joy, hello love, hello strength, hello hope. It's a new horizon.
It's a new horizon, and it is that. This is Megan DiMartino. It is Thursday evening, the 10th of August, and I am thrilled to be back. Yay! It was such a wonderful 10 days, 12 days that I spent with family as my daughter in Colorado. I have a daughter in Colorado, but I was in Toronto, Canada, with my daughter who lives in Canada. I haven't seen her in 4 years because they moved at the end of 20, and it's just been a tumultuous time, as we know. And so it was so fabulous to be with her husband, as well as a beautiful lake house that we just were able to, just enjoy that 90-degree and really 80-degree weather. So hello, joy, hello, peace. A new horizon. I'm back, and I am so excited to be with you guys and share the Propel Deep Dive. Last Tuesday, or this Tuesday of this week, I interviewed Pastor Rodney, Rock Hatfield. Rodney and I have known each other for quite a few years now through Rise and Grind in Glen Lundy, and then recently, with the Breakfast with Champions. And he's been a regular with me in the last 3-4 months since I started the Propel Deep Dive. And what I mean by that, as Rodney popped up here, that my guest joins me, and we continue the conversation that we started on Tuesday on the Breakfast with Champions on the Propel Weekly. And Rodney and I had an in-depth conversation about compassion, one of the 5 C's in the Propel Your Business and Life Activation Program. And the 5 C's are clarity, courage, confidence, commitment, and compassion. And compassion, people think, oh, I'm a very compassionate person, which is great. Very important to be empathetic to others, very much so. I mean, it really sets a foundation of emotional intelligence, intellectual intelligence, but with the 5C, the compassion is about compassion for self. And so we started discussing this on Tuesday, and then today we will go into a deep dive of this, as well as then inviting at 8:30 others in to discuss compassion, what it means to them, how it affects their lives, and how it will truly impact their business as well. So without further ado, I would like to introduce to you my dear friend, Pastor Anthony, who is my other pastor friend who we do the heart. Pastor Rodney Rock Hatfield. Thank you, Rodney, for joining me. So
How are you, Megan?
Now I see you a bit, but a bit, not the full screen. So if Angeline,
you see me?
Pardon me?
Can you hear me and everything? Everything's good?
I hear you perfectly. So I'm just saying, Angeline, if you can, who's my producer, yay, there you go. Perfect. So that's
awesome.
What live TV and live social media is all about, right? We've been listening to Glen Lundy for years talking about his crazy, challenges with his electronics, not just Facebook,
right.
But electronics. So thank you, Rodney, for joining me.
Oh, it's my pleasure to do that. And of course, I think you were getting ready to call me Pastor Anthony Hart, which would have been an incredible compliment on my behalf. As a very good guy that I met also, or think around the time I met you, and just I think he's a wonderful guy. I would love to connect with him again. But yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, and always a pleasure to come and share something that's going to help somebody, help make a difference in the life of somebody. So I'm happy to be here.
Great. And I'm asked all the time, how do I decide, or how do I know, or that type of question of who my next guest is going to be. I'm asked that a lot. And my answer is always the same. I really don't know. It's really the Holy Spirit. And there's no premeditated real plan. I don't have a chart. Oh, this would be effective for this and this for that, which so many people do. I just listen to the Holy Spirit, and when I get a Holy Spirit direction, I contact the person. And so we've been off of the deep dive for the last 2 weeks. I was out of town. I went to Buffalo, kind of closer to your neck of the woods.
Right.
Then we drove, my cousins who live in Buffalo, we drove to central New York to, it's called the Mohawk Valley. And that's where my mother was a child, and her siblings. And the Buffalo gang, their father was the youngest of my mother's siblings. And she was the second oldest of 7 children. And she had a very tragic childhood. Her father and mother married and had the first 2, and then the other children, there was a set of twins. But after the last child was born, Carl, the Buffalo patriarch, their father passed away when he was 2. And then 5 years later, their mother passed away. So my mother was 12 when her father passed, and 16 when her mother passed. And this was, in a very difficult time in America, and financially, and just, from a poverty standpoint. And but here these 7 children were left, mother and fatherless. So my mother took on the role of both the mother and father. And she promised her mom, her mother had a long time illness even before her husband passed away. And she promised her mother that she would make sure that the kids were all on some level taken care of. Now there was a aunt who was better known as Auntie, who brought up the youngest child, Carl, but my mother really was the glue of this family. And I share this story because A, it's fresh on my mind, and B, because we went to St. Johnsville, the town that they all grew up in, and went into actually the home that they lived in, and my grandfather passed in, and my grandmother did not pass in that home. But where so much of their history was, and compassion, Rodney, I'm going back to this because of A, it's fresh in my mind, but B, it is so relevant to the word compassion. And as I was sharing with you, in the introductory, that compassion is, yes, it can, from a Webster's dictionary position, can mean empathy and, feeling for others, but also the importance of compassion for yourself. And that's one of the things that my mother, one of the legacies that she really conveyed, was that compassion for herself, but also for others. And because, as I said, she had a difficult time, and but yet she didn't carry it around like a badge of courage or a look at me type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that, so I want to delve into this a bit, but before we do that, meaning compassion and not compassion for yourself, right. But I want to give our listeners a bit of a bio, a little overview of you, if I may. Okay?
Right.
A crystallization of what we spoke about on Tuesday. But you, are a very bright guy, college graduate, went into the service, was an officer, had some relationships that you may or may not have, looking back, wish that had happened. But on the other side of the coin, it's what makes you who you are. and you have
Right.
some fabulous kids from all this relationship structure in your life. So you've learned from that the love of your life, and now you have a 12-year-old daughter. And pronounce your wife's name again, so I don't say
Sherelle.
it. Sherelle.
Sherelle.
Sherelle. Okay, I did write that correctly in the post. So anyhow, you have had a personal epiphany when you were in 8th grade that you were special, that there was something about you that was special. You weren't just lost in the crowd with family dynamics, that you were special. You were a jock, you enjoyed sports, you got accolades from that, but also your classmates and teachers were responding to you. And that gave you the confidence to continue on and go to college and excel in what you did. Post all of that, you have, and during this service period, you had a born again experience. And I liken it to say, for myself, Rodney, I had a Damascus Road conversion. Because again, most people, and I say most people have a past that they would like to say, I wish I had known the Lord before.
Right.
But he uses all of those experiences to refine us and define us. And so those experiences, I've grown to embrace those and not, wish that they weren't. They become part of our stories. They become part of us and who we are today. But you had a born again experience, and that has defined and expanded your horizons for the next period of your life.
Right.
And you're a pastor of a church in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. You were also
Associate pastor.
Associate. And again, I wrote that correctly in I said affiliate, but associate started with an A.
Yeah.
Associate pastor, as well as a chaplain at prison ministry, as well as hospice ministry.
Yeah. Currently, I'm hospice. Previously, I was chaplain, but I volunteered in the prison system for over 15 years, even before chaplaincy.
Okay. So, folks, this is, you talk about the word compassion, that is truly builds that compassion capacity in one's spirit. And you shared a very powerful story, or a point, I guess, on Tuesday. So I guess that's crystallizing it. Would that bring it pretty, would you like to add anything to that?
Oh, there's so much more to the story that we're not going to be able to get to, but that's the Reader's Digest summary version of my life. There's so much more to it, and the more I think about it, the more I realize that so many pieces of my life and so many pieces of the story of my life have been orchestrated by God. And now used for me to share with others, and the thing about it is, it's not just my story. My story is mine, but what I want to let everybody else know, that their story and their life is a story that has been used also. But I think that so many of us don't think that they have to be like a millionaire, a business owner, or whatever, for their story to matter. But that's not true. You've lived these life, and these lessons that your life has been makes a difference in just what you went through. If we would just share just what we went through and pay attention to the lessons that we were learned through our life, that it would be able to help somebody else. And a lot of people don't think highly enough of themselves to think that their story matters, that it's worth telling, that it's something that can make a difference in the life of somebody else, because maybe they're not, a business owner, somebody who's in front of people, but you've been through so many things, and the fact that you've came through it and where you're at right now lets you know that whatever it is that you've been through was really not for you anyway. It's for you to share with somebody else, to help somebody else to come through. And that's where that compassion is kind of intertwined into the story, is because all of us have suffered through something. And
You know,
compassion, the word for compassion means to suffer together.
ah,
And
ah,
we have to suffer together. We suffer together, but whatever the amount of suffering was, whether it was minor or major, that level of compassion that you have for other people, that we have for other people, or should have for other people, is
mhm.
what we need to share, so that we can help each other make it through this thing called life.
Wow, compassion is struggling together,
It's
because one
suffering
of the
together.
key things to my mother's story is that she never shared any of that, Rodney. Nothing. I mean, we knew he passed and she passed, and the
Mhm.
highlight of those facts, but she never spoke about Taylor's woe. And so struggling together is such an amazing point, because again, they were struggling together, but that gave her a heightened, what we did see from her was her compassion, for others, but she also had self-compassion. So wow, and that is so powerful, because no one's story is too small. No one's,
No.
no.
Mm.
So with that, and you shared on Tuesday how when you were a young guy, you were hurt by family members that really didn't give you the attention that you should have gotten, and you felt very sad by it and very hurt by it, I guess. Or
Yeah, because I was shy. I was a shy kid, and I was so shy. I was even shy around my family, and like I shared with you uh, on Tuesday, that it was kind of hurtful to me, because there's people that I love, and they always called me like I was the weird one because I didn't talk, and I had a older sister and a younger brother, and I think some of you have met my older sister Kim, but my younger brother Craig, he was the clown. He was the one that entertained everyone. He was the outgoing one at that time, and I shared the story that there was times when my aunt would come over, and they would come over and get my brother and sister and take them over to go play with their kids, but they would leave me there because I was the weird one. I was just going to be quiet. I wasn't going to be, so I see them, seeing letting in essence was saying that we want to take them because they're more important than you, and you're not as important, you know what I mean? So I'd always have to stay home, and that was something that always was a challenge for me.
well, the word says life and death is in the power of the tongue. And so, weird. I mean, that word, just when you said it
Yeah.
the other day and you said it again tonight, I mean, it just is so unsettling to my spirit, because I don't care if you were quiet and read a book every week, which Mazel Tov, leaders are readers, as we
Right.
said. You got very, very deeply into reading, which is meaning when you were academically oriented.
Mhm.
But to use words of that nature is so hurtful and so not compassionate, you
Yeah,
know?
and I'm so grateful that my mom, she was always defending me and everything, but I'm so grateful that she didn't see me that way too, because if I don't know what kind of person I'd have been if it was my mom calling me that, or my mom treat me like that, and that type of thing, quite frankly, it was not really my brothers or sisters that were doing it, because they were young too, but they wasn't treating me like that, and thankfully
Right.
that was not the case.
Right. And what's interesting about what you just said right there is, again, because I talk to my daughters and about things of their remembrance, and some of the things they share is like, oh gee. I mean, so their
Mhm.
perception of
Right.
things, positively or negatively, were very different. Me being that parent in this situation. So
Right.
it's perception also, enters into it. But like you said, your siblings, they just lapped up the attention,
Right.
but yet didn't take those words and treat you any differently, which is
No,
powerful.
I'm grateful for that too. I'm very
Yes,
grateful for that.
yes. Are your parents still alive?
No, my mom passed away 17 years ago, going 18 years ago, and my dad passed away in 1991.
Long
He was
time.
only 54, so I'm 57, so I lived longer than him, and yeah, that was a challenge. And
But
my wife and my mom and dad were separated and then divorced, and so yeah.
But your mother did plant those seeds in that field of your spirit that you were
Because my
special.
mom was the epitome of compassion, and she lived it. She lived it around in every area of her life. In the way that she treated people, in the way that people treated her, she was compassionate through all. And it was at her funeral when I seen the incredible impact that she's had on so many people's lives.
Now, is your mother, Janelle Griego's father's relative? Is that the connection?
Well, yeah. Well, my dad. It was that my dad's
Oh,
side.
okay,
Yeah,
father's side.
my dad's side.
Okay, so I'm getting a little personal there, guys, just to ask, but as he's speaking about his parents, made me think another very special woman in the Rise and Grind and community, Janelle Griego, which is
And that's how I got into the Rise Grind community, because she shared it with me.
what I
Yes.
thought. That's what I thought. So let's talk about, as I was going into, from a compassion standpoint, you are now. Again, we spoke on Tuesday, and people can go into the podcast of the BWC podcast, and we spoke about, your ministries. And the one thing you said in reference to, I started to go there, and we went off into another place, but was the young man or it could have been an older gentleman, I don't know, but in the prison ministry, you made a comment that we are all. You were saying, here are these burly guys working out to keep sane, and every day is the same day, so they have their structures and their activities. But you said deep in the heart of Texas and Pennsylvania and wherever, that they're little boys just with their own hurts. And
Yeah.
what I'd like you to expound upon with that, because I've thought about it since Tuesday. These people that you minister to, because we've all have a story. We, and you listen to podcasts, you listen to different people on Clubhouse, you listen to different people on stages speaking. They're always speaking about their stories, and their stories have compelling facts,
Right.
regardless of the direction they're taking it. Mike, and then you've shared your story and how your mother's support, and then your own, ability to rise above that and get into sports, and then get kudos and strengthening your own character from there, helped you go into college and the military and so forth. How many of these people did you meet at Rodney that you would say were just such an unfortunate situation that they fell into, that circumstances could have been so different? I don't know what type of prison you were in, but if it was maximum security or for life, but
It was maximum security. It's state prison.
wow. So therefore, in meeting these people, how many of them do you feel, if they could do it all over again, would?
Oh yeah, there's most of them, because a lot of the people that we spoke to in the prison system, they made some mistakes. They done some things wrong. There's some that were just so messed up that they did things wrong, and they probably going to continue to do things wrong. But those are not the ones always that are coming to church. But the ones that you see, a lot of them realize that they made a decision under circumstances that they wish they would have not have made.
Mhm.
And now from the other side of it, they realize that if they would have took a few seconds or thought for a while, they could have got out of that situation. But another group of them were brought up into a bad situation that they had no responsibility for, because they came up in an environment that was crime ridden, that was just messed up, and that's all they knew. So that's all they knew to do. They didn't know nothing different. It wasn't until they had found themselves in the prison when they started looking back and realizing that that's really not how people are supposed to be. Now you have a whole, variety of situations and circumstances with the people, but the one uh, uh, factor that would probably be found in all of them is that all of them were hurt kids.
Mhm.
They were kids that were hurt. And what I shared with you on Tuesday, when I would go into the prisons, uh, I wouldn't be preaching to, or I wouldn't be speaking to the men with the muscles and the mustaches. You know what I mean? That wasn't the ones. That's the ones that I was looking at, but that's not who I was speaking to. I was speaking to that little broken boy in them, because that little broken boy in them was connecting with that little broken boy in me.
Mhm.
That still remains, and it's that little broken boy that I can still relate to, that can still relate to that little broken boy and some of those men. And sometimes we try to silence or forget about the broken person that's within us. You know what I mean? Because we've grown, but you've never healed. you know you've never healed. So if you don't heal the brokenness, then you'll always have that, and there's going to be a number of things that trigger that brokenness in you. That's why you find adults acting like fools and not really, acting in ways that, because their emotional growth and their emotional maturity has not developed,
Mhm.
regardless of how big they get, how much weight they put on, whether they put muscles on, whether they put makeup on to change their hair. If they're still broken, something's going to trigger that, and you can do all kind of things. That's why you get a millionaire who feels unfulfilled.
Yes, yes.
You get a millionaire that feels. You get somebody with all kind of stuff, and they're like, "Is this it?" Because there's still not stuff that they've dealt with within themselves.
So before we leave this point, I just want, because what I'm trying to share with others is that the point you just said, that we carry things, but from the past, but at some point through surrendering our lives to higher power, Jesus, God,
Mhm.
and you were a minister in the prison. How many of these folks that did come to the Lord, these little boys that still are hurt and broken, how many of them have been able to give themselves compassion?
There's been a number of them in the prison system. See, here's the difference between being in the prison and being outside the prison. They realize that there's something wrong with them, and if they can make it to church and be real and deal with the Word of God and apply it to their life, whether they're in church or not, then they'll start healing that brokenness. When they start healing that brokenness, and then they start becoming free. You know, and I've seen a number of people in the prison system that are freer than some of the people that are outside of the prison system. And there's people that are outside the prison system degrading some of the people that's in the prison system and not realizing that they're more free than you are, than
Yes,
they are.
yes, because
Yeah. So it's just,
they have that inner freedom of their spirit.
yeah. And there's a number. I mean, there's a number of people who I've seen two or three, or maybe four or five of them that come out of the system and are still doing well. They've come out and they've they connected with me, and they're still doing well, and
Oh,
they're serving the Lord. And not all of them come out and be ministers or anything, but they become upstanding people and able to make a difference in communities and in families and in their own churches.
Well, that's a perfect segue to the next part, bringing from that and what you're doing currently with hospice, but we'll leave that for tonight. But is that you will segue into that, is that you and your wife are now beginning a coaching program. And I'm sure that both of your careers and what you do and have done, she's very involved in the church and women's ministry and what she does in her own career. But I'm sure that what you have been doing for the last 15 years in this ministry work, and maybe longer with your own church work, you're bringing to your coaching and consulting program. So share with our guests a little bit of what you're going to be doing and the evolution of that, meaning how did it evolve for both of you and to do what you're going to be doing?
Well, it has a lot to do with helping people to overcome their brokenness, because what I've found throughout, ministry and just community activities and wherever it is that I find myself, that there's a lot of hurting people, but there's a whole lot of hurting people that have the mask of not being like they're not hurting.
Right.
And it's only when you get really close enough to people when they want to share things with you that you really realize how broken some people are. And it was in these environments where the people were coming to me and also coming to my wife, asking, about, overcoming some of the things that they're dealing with. And we just found ourselves all the time just, having conversations with people, trying to help them and meeting with them and just trying to, talk them through certain things. But it's never been a formal thing to where we realized that we could probably, help a whole lot more people in this way. So.
Power of two, coming together and working with your strengths for others. And I'm so excited for you guys. When I heard that, I saw you put something up on Facebook about it, and I was just so thrilled, Rodney. My glasses broke today, guys. So I only have my driving glasses, so I'm going to need you, Rodney, to help me. Who is with us this evening?
We got Pamela Durham and Jana Dubase.
Hello,
ladies. Jana Dubase. I think Pam was there.
It's Dubes.
Dubes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good, Jana.
I was just going to say, AKA Jenna. Good evening, ladies. Welcome to the deep dive. I'm sure you were listening a bit before you came into the room, into the studio here. Yes?
Yeah.
Were you listening to Rodney? Good.
Yes.
Pam, were you listening to Rodney?
Yes, I just caught the last little bit. I had like 3 calls at 8:00, but I wanted to come in here about 8:30 to get with you guys because it's so uplifting.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, do you know Rodney Hatfield?
I think I've seen you either on the Clubhouse or in this room before. Haven't you been in this room before?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's where I saw you as well.
Or the show.
I remember Jana too.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, the reason I asked that, ladies, is because Rodney is Pastor Rodney Rock Hatfield, and he is an amazing man of God, and but his story is very compelling, and certainly around the dynamic of compassion. And as you know, this is based on my 5 C's to start, scale, and sustain the business and life of your dreams. And it's clarity, courage, confidence, commitment, and compassion. And Pastor Rodney has been an associate pastor of a church in Johnstown, Pennsylvania for years, as well as doing prison ministry and now hospice ministry. And so if you don't have a compassionate spirit for others and certainly yourself, those types of involvements could not happen. But what he shared, we start on Tuesday. Guys, if you don't know, we start on Tuesday at 10 Eastern for the Propel Weekly, where I have an hour with my guest, and I I don't know all the deep things about the person. And so when I say deep, meaning particular points. And so I'm able to interview the individual and then take it to Thursday night and do a deep dive in it. But Rodney was a quiet young boy, and until he started doing sports in high school and got encouragement, and then went to college, went into the service, was an officer, and came out, and so his life has evolved from then. But during the service, he gave his heart to the Lord, and before the period, he made a few mistakes like we all do. And we're talking about, and I say mistakes, meaning judgments and decisions. Now, the net of it is that he has beautiful children that are, very much part of his life. And he's now married to the love of his life, and Sherelle, and they have a daughter who's 12. And they just started basically, I don't want to say counseling, Rodney, I don't put the wrong words out there. Coaching. So ladies, that's a quick overview of Rodney's life. But, we were discussing earlier here tonight about that everyone has a story, and often people perceive that their story isn't big enough, isn't, with bells and whistles to make a difference in others' lives. And I'm here to say, and he's here to say, that that's absolutely not true, because we're here to help each other and to be part of one another's lives. And so that's really what this deep dive is about, and then inviting our guests in to join us. So with that said, but compassion in reference to the 5 C's is giving yourself compassion, forgiving yourself, compassion of things that you wish you might not have done in the past, but you didn't have the information, you didn't have the experience, you didn't have things around you. And that's what we were talking about before you guys came in, about these folks, the gentleman that he met and ministered to in the prison system, who came out and had given themselves compassion, and they had changed their lives. And that, I'm sure, Rodney, was truly gratifying to you to see that, the piece that you played in that. It was their ultimate decision, but the piece you played in that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, one thing about compassion is that once we can cultivate compassion within ourselves and for ourselves, that opens us up to be able to be more compassionate to others, because it's like a ripple effect. I mean, once you start, because like I said, it means suffer together, suffer together. You realize that you're suffering, and you address your suffering and kind of have compassion on yourself as you're, empathetic for what you've been through. Then you're able to be compassionate with others, with what they're suffering with. And then it's that connection of my suffering connects with your suffering. But when you share compassion with other people, the difference between compassion and empathy is, like, with compassion, you're there to help. You're there to help them with that compassion. Empathy, you try to relate, but when we're talking about compassion, that's almost like an action word. You have a motivation to help somebody else go through their suffering, because you've addressed your suffering. And it's you can start compassion with yourself, but compassion is not a singular thing.
No, and it starts with,
it has to involve others.
it starts with that forgiveness of self.
Right.
And yes. So ladies, would you like to interject any thoughts, any questions, any comments, any personal anecdotal stories? Because again, everyone's story is important.
It's definitely compassion. I mean, that can start a healing. That forgiveness really starts the healing, and just being there for people and loving on them and helping them to see that they can love themselves. If they're forgiven, they may feel that shame and guilt, but the Lord can lift all that and free them, through that forgiveness and that compassion. And you were talking about prison, and I can tell you, when people suffer together, my aunt, my mom's youngest sister, was murdered by her husband. She was going to divorce him. And so he went to prison, and I remember he came up, for parole, and my mother was telling me, it's just a horrible thing. You're a Christian, you want to pray for people, but something so tragic like that happening to your family, you just have to stay in prayer so you don't have that root of bitterness, to grow. But he did not get out, but he died in prison, and he may have found the Lord in there. I'm not really sure, but his love covers everything. But you definitely, as a family, have to have compassion when you're suffering through something so great like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and when you said that
The
he
root
was under parole, that's an emotional time, and that emotional about forgiveness and or compassion for that person. Rodney, you were going to say something?
Yeah, the root feeling, or the root character is love. I mean, when you're talking about passion, it's rooted in love. And if you don't have love, there's no way that you can have compassion. Just not, there's no ability for you to even, Brian Collette just came in, but that you can't even deal with compassion without having the root of love. It won't work.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
No,
agree.
It's got to be that agape love, not
Right.
the other love.
Not the
It has to
filio.
be agape,
Yeah,
unconditional love. And
Mhm.
many of us struggle with that. It's unconditional until particular conditions come up.
Mhm.
But that's not what God talks about. It's
Yeah.
unconditional. It's regardless.
Mhm. And talking about, you guys were going to do couples coaching, I think that is definitely something that's needed because of that love. I feel like when you're with somebody so long, it kind of goes back to filio, that first time
Yeah.
love, but you really need to get back in that agape love for each other, and know that the Lord is the partner with you in your union. He's going to help you rise above and bring back that love and that intimacy in your relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. Now the goal is to do some couples, but we'll also be doing each of us individual as well. So It's not everyone. All the things that we're going to do is we're going to be doing together. That would take a whole lot of agape. and some days we don't have agape. We're a real couple that are opposites, and we have those issues there too, though. But we love each other, though.
Now, Rodney, did you say that you're going to do couple together work and then individually? Is that what you just said?
Sometimes, yeah. It depends on what the situation is. Now, coming up here, and actually in September 23rd, which is our anniversary, we're actually participating together. We've been asked to speak at it's called a Power Couple Luncheon here in Johnstown. So we were asked to speak at this luncheon, and we'll be doing that together on actually our anniversary. So when they asked us, and we said we definitely got to do it since it's on that day.
Wow, what a blessing, and what an appropriate day for you to be. Is that the first time you'll be speaking together like that?
Well, we did it at our church. We did it at our church for Veterans Day service once. We spoke together and about our experience in the military. But other than that, no. But then, coming in October, also we'll be going to Arizona, where my father-in-law lives, and speak at a conference down there together as well.
Wow, look at what God is doing, Rodney. You said yes. You said yes. Only about a month ago on this program, you were, I don't know if it was with Camille Walker or one of the guests, but you were speaking about, thinking about, wanting to maybe. You were using those kind of words. But look at the definitiveness of making a decision and what God has opened. So that's a very important piece to it as well, meaning that forgiveness of self, but then building that confidence, which is one of the 5 C's. But
Right.
I want to invite Brian in. Good evening, Brian, because again, I know we all know Brian from Clubhouse, and certainly if you come into the deep dive, the Propel Deep Dive, he often comes in at the latter part of the last half hour. But I just marvel may be too strong. Hello, Brian. Marvel may be too strong, Brian, but what I'm going to say is that your recent posts, your recent videos are so fabulous.
Yeah.
And they're so fabulous for so many reasons, but one of them is your commitment to autism and to be real and to share with others. And I just really commend you, Brian. Really commend you. Really. So, Brian, I have a question. Since tonight is about compassion, this isn't about airing, your history, but I'm sure you've had some challenges in school and when you were in grade school, and you've talked about, as Rodney spoke about tonight, family members not understanding his personality. I'm sure you've had some challenges, but when did you start forgiving yourself? And I'm taking liberty by using that word, but when did you start freeing yourself to have the confidence, the courage, and the self-compassion to be so bold and so out there?
Good evening, Megan. Good evening, friends. So I started to have the confidence in that in late 2014, early 2015, when I had joined a young adult group or faith-based young adult group that I used to be a part of. And that was where the journey started. And then it was 8 years ago, stepping away from the church I grew up at, which I'm technically still a member of, but have been inactive for 8 years now. So I was going to a different kind of church before COVID, and then since March 2020, I've only been worshiping virtually for a lot of different reasons. Clubhouse being one of them, because the conversations go a lot deeper than when you're usually in like a Catholic church setting and people are just getting in and getting out of Mass. But in saying that, that was where the journey really first started with the confidence thing, because no longer was I just around immediate family and everything. This was me, and facing it all.
And what does the word compassion mean to you?
Compassion means understanding, and empathy. That's what compassion means to me.
And we've been speaking tonight about self-compassion, meaning, like you said the word too, forgiveness of self, but is that part of your journey?
Indirectly, it is. I don't think about it all the time, but I I I do think about it from a sense of when I'm still dealing with certain things at home. Like, for example, and this is sort of something that kind of happened recently too. One of my former classmates just lost their mother, and I haven't. We haven't had a lot of contact since high school. I wasn't like I didn't have a lot of interactions with him, but enough that I have thought about going to his wake, his mother's wake, and so like when I so in a situation like that, some people be like then why would you be going to the wake? Not saying that you can't, but it's the thing is that social media has taught us that we all need to be together and loving. I'm not saying that you're going to make it to everybody's wake or to make it to everything that everybody has going on. I don't mean it like that. I mean it more so as don't just keep yourself limited to a small circle. I hear stuff like that all the time. I've heard some of that in some of the clubhouse rooms, and it's like I feel like that's what's contributing to mental health issues and some people having a lack of compassion for themselves because people get so zeroed in on the people that they feel like they bond with the best.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what you're saying is it's about separation. And God was the most inclusive person there was, and Jesus walking the planet and including everyone from every walk of life and every circumstance. So again, it's John 17, you know, that he is like the Father and we are like him. And so yes. It's about inclusiveness, not separation. And so, yes, it's a, you know, life is not for the faint of heart. It's about building, you know, that clarity, courage, confidence, commitment, and compassion, and really building all of that. Not just, that's why I tied the word life to it, because it's not just about our businesses. Jana, what do you do in your life, by the way?
What do I do in my life? Mm-hmm. Today I was house cleaning. But, well, I'm retired, you know, from a litigation law office as a paralegal. And so I've paid my dues as far as stress level. And I'm retired right now, but I've gotten interested in, I belong to a lot since COVID. I was in a abusive relationship verbally, a verbal one, which was very strange for me because it was right after my husband died. And I found out later that that's not unusual. It was a real bad thing, but it was like I was married to my husband for 22 years and he died at 48. And it just threw me into a tailspin. And then I met this guy, Daryl, and things worked out okay for a while. But then once he moved in, things were real different. It took me a real long time to get him out. And the only way I got him out was one day I just said, listen, God, I'm turning this over to you. I can't handle this anymore. And he was gone like in 7 months. I mean, I couldn't believe it. But the other things I like Brian was saying, it's like I belong to like 4 different groups right now, and they're all different, but I keep seeing the same people. But what I'm working on right now is you know, Rodney, when you were talking about your story, you had me in tears. I was sitting here just crying because I have no that's what I'm working on right now. I have no self-compassion for myself, even though I have compassion for everybody else in the world. I mean, I care for everybody in the world. Like, I mean, I take it all to heart, like it's all on my shoulders. But I forget about myself. And um
But
and
that's
then
a lie. That's a lie, Jenna. It's a lie. But keep going. I
oh,
mean,
I was gonna say, and then about wearing a mask. I'm really good at that. And then about being broken as a kid and growing up and still being broken as an adult is really, it's awful. And what Megan said about, she said something about Megan said, oh, you said something, Megan, that was really important. I thought I wrote it down. But anyway, Megan had said something and that really I resonated with. But anyway, so that's what I'm working on. And just like Pamela said, I am working on forgiving myself. And it's just, I've been doing this for about 2 years now. And by being in these different groups and listening to different people, I have been starting to heal from the abusiveness and from the lack of all of a sudden, the lack of self-confidence, and just trying to have some compassion and some self-love for my own self.
yes, yes. Because if you can't love yourself, you cannot really continuously love others. I recently, this past, I'm talking about since January, I didn't know Pedro Adeo. Write his name down, Pam. Pedro Adeo, Adeo. And I didn't know him at all. And I saw something on New Year's Eve online inviting to his wisdom challenge, 31-day wisdom challenge with Proverbs, exploring each day a different proverb. And each day he had different people with him. This is the 4th year he's been doing this. And so I now listen to his daily dose every morning, but it's about the Proverbs. And one of the things that I have learned very clearly through this is that it's about the inside out, meaning seek ye first the kingdom of God and all his righteousness, and all will be given unto you. But if you don't seek within first, nothing will happen outside. You said it best a minute ago, Jana, when you said about the individual that you wanted to get out of your house, and then you finally, quote unquote, leaned and trusted the Lord and asked, seek, knock, and how quickly that happened. So, but you have to go within to have it manifest out. What would you like to add to that, Rodney?
Well, I shared with you that I've been outreach pastor of the church, and one of the things that I always tell our church is that if we're going to do outreach, before there's any outreach, there's got to be inreach. For any outreach, you got to be inreach. So if we're going to go out, we're going to have to start with each other, and that's why I would be teaching classes and stuff, and teaching stuff that we had to deal with before we could take what we had the desire to take it outside of the church. If there's no inreach, there is no outreach. And one thing I'm going to say to Jana is, see, the fact that the one thing that makes somebody who's willing to help other people and willing to do things for other people is the root of love. You can't even do that without love. But here's the thing, though. If you have the love to do it for others, the love for yourself is there too, but you have to acknowledge it. You have to acknowledge it. And the way you acknowledge it is by asking yourself for forgiveness and giving yourself some grace, and not try to, answer for all the things that you may have done in the past, because it doesn't matter, because grace is that mercy is God withholding what we do deserve. And grace is giving us, God blessing us, even though we don't deserve it, because none of us really deserve anything, right? But it's because of the grace and the mercy of God that we're able to, because he'll bless us regardless. Because you think back over your life, every wrong thing you did, every bad thing you said, everything that every person you just slept with that you shouldn't have, you drank something you shouldn't have. But see, then you look at your situation now, you really don't deserve some of the stuff you have, but it's because of God's grace, giving what you don't deserve. And the only reason why we can deserve it is because all of that penalty was paid by Jesus Christ on the cross, so that we don't have to have that. So we ask God to forgive us, and it's gone. And God does forgive us. Where the God says that, confess, God is faithful and just to forgive us of sins and cleanse us from all unrighteousness. So all we have to do is, confess our sins and let it go, And if God's going to let it go, you might as well let it go too.
Yes.
And that means you're justified. It's like, it's just as if it didn't happen. So if it didn't happen, you should feel good about yourself. You understand what I'm saying? But but you have to do it though. You have to do it. You have to see yourself as if it never happened. Whatever happened with the other guy, the people, how you treated, whatever, all that stuff didn't happen. And then that makes you righteous. You're right standing with God. That means it's like you are what Jesus is, because he became what we're not. You see what I'm saying? So we're righteous not because of us. We're righteous because of Jesus Christ. And if we ask God to forgive us, then that's a clean slate. That's nothing we have to be ashamed of. So we can have full confidence in ourselves because God has confidence in us.
Yeah, I have asked him to forgive me, but I keep asking him to forgive me, and I know I don't have to do that.
Oh, he forgave you. You have to worry about you forgiving you.
Right. Jesus forgave me.
Yeah, you're forgiven. You have to forgive you, and realize that it's all good.
I know that's what I'm struggling with, is forgiving myself.
So Rodney, Angeline, I know you're there. Can you put in the chat any contact information for Rodney? Because I assume, Rodney, you're going to do some counseling virtually, or is it all personal at one-on-one?
That'll be virtual as well. Okay, and my email address for the business is rodney@hatfieldgrowth.com.
Say that again, please.
rodney@hatfieldgrowth.com.
Okay. Well, you can always reach me, guys, if you want Rodney's information. Because again, I just wrote down, Rodney, some notes here that, you'll hear me say them again, that very powerful, just very, very powerful. So grace is what we don't deserve, justification as it didn't happen. With no in-reach, there is no outreach. Those are good.
Yeah.
Those are good. So Pam, would you like to share anything, any thoughts, anything on your heart about specifically compassion for yourself, what's going on in your life, business, so forth?
Yes, compassion, just know you're enough and you are worthy. You are worthy. And just receive that. Be an excellent receiver. Because you know what? I was looking at myself, and in this picture, it looks like there's a lion behind me. And I just thought, that is how God is. We're walking around in his shadow every day, and he is watching over us and protecting us every day. And we can have that assurance and that confidence. And when we exercise our faith and belief, it just increases that armor. It increases us. And I just thank the Lord. I do have some new stuff coming out. I have an announcement on Facebook I'm going to announce tomorrow. It's an exciting thing about my podcast. And also a new business that I'm starting that I am super excited about. I'll be announcing that next week. So stay tuned.
We should go to your Facebook to see the announcement. You can't give us a sneak peek tonight, or?
Well, okay, I'll tell you one thing. One thing is my podcast, and I'm going to announce this tomorrow on Facebook. But Christian Mix 106, the radio station, is going to feature my podcast in their on demand. So it'll be available on demand on the radio station. Yep, website. I was super
So
excited.
you already have a
about that.
podcast going now?
Yes, it's Real Heart Talk. You are enough. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So this new podcast is going to be streamed out on this radio station.
Yes, on the Christian Mix 106. Yeah.
Well, what state are you in, Pam?
I'm in Georgia.
Georgia, okay.
I'm not sure where they're located. I don't think they're in Georgia. I'm not sure where they are, but they're in a different state than Georgia. But as part of Christian
Women,
all
over the place. You're going to be going all over the place through them. So
well, I'm available anytime, Pam.
Okay, all right.
Me as well.
That'll be great. I'd love to have you.
And I was sharing earlier before we were in the green room that I had a podcast for 2 years. It was called Unique Leaders Live. It was a live, and then it was a podcast. And you can go on YouTube, and there's 2 years of people. We ended it at the end of last February, 22. Wow. But I spoke to some podcast people this week, and I said, what if I just take the first 26 minutes and have an intro and an outro before we invite you guys in and do, Propel Deep Dive? And they said, heck yes. It's already being streamed out into YouTube. You might as well do it all. So we're going to start that again. We've been doing this since March 1st.
Amazing.
So we're going to start again. So I'd love to have you on.
Oh, I would love to. Yes, thank you. Congratulations too.
Thank you. But we also start like Rodney was my guest on Tuesday on the BWC Breakfast with Champions, 10 o'clock. Probably not conducive to most of you. Jana, you're still sleeping, but it's early there in the West Coast. But it's called Propel Weekly, and we start this interview then. Of course, that's on BWC's podcast, and then we'll do this on Thursday night. Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. Yes.
Yeah. So we have a sneak peek, kids, and then we'll hear the rest.
Well, I'm still sleeping because I live in the Pacific Northwest.
10 o'clock is what time in the Pacific Northwest? 10 o'clock. That's 8 o'clock?
7.
7. So that's what I meant.
If you're Eastern.
Yes, it's 10 o'clock Eastern.
But I'm not still sleeping.
Okay.
I've been up for an hour.
Okay. So then you join us in
So I don't have any excuse, right, Megan?
Exactly. So join us in Breakfast with Champions. That would be great.
Yes.
Okay.
Gentlemen, Angeline, are you there, my friend? Angeline wanted she to take a screenshot of us all. And
well, Megan, I thank you for having me either way.
Here. Okay. Sorry, I was trying to get back. So let me take your control. I'm going to get off of the screen though, because I look crazy. It's been a crazy day.
that's your opinion.
Is she taking a shot?
I don't know.
I got it. I just had to get me out of it.
Jana put a piece of paper up in front of this.
I got her before she did. So
Okay.
all right. Wait. Actually, Brian has eyes closed. So I'm going to do it one more time.
Okay. Perfect.
And I'll just leave.
Smile.
Five, 4, 3, 2. Awesome. Thanks, guys. I just let you know when I was done.
And Rodney, after we close the room, would you stay on for a minute?
Sure.
Angeline, from now on, take a picture of the guest and I before we start.
Yeah,
Sure.
that'd be perfect. Yeah, I'll have to do that too. I'll capture something tomorrow.
Yes.
All right. Thanks,
Well,
guys.
thank you for Grace being gone.
Yes, it's a pleasure. Thank you. I appreciate
All
you
right.
having me.
Thanks everyone for who joined. We had Jessica Powers on Facebook, Patricia Cummins. We saw her over there as well. She said, thank you all, Megan. This is appreciated and so needed in this world. Compassion is a cornerstone, part of the meaning and understanding of Come Follow Me, spoken to us by Jesus. Yes, yes, yes. And then Feline Catena was also on Facebook. Tony with the Keys was on here as well. He said excited to catch the show live. Hi Megan, what up Rodney? So we had some viewers on there as well. So thank you all for joining us. We'll be here again next week. Join us first in Clubhouse on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. for the Propel Weekly. And then with the same special guest, we'll do this deep dive here Thursdays, 8 p.m. Eastern. So thank you guys so much.
And again, the Propel Daily, but I think you guys are all receiving that. So, but
Yes.
spread the word. Appreciate it.
Yes. More to come. More to come.
Thank you so
All right.
much.
Thank you, yo.
All right,
Thanks,
bye.
Rodney. Thanks,
Bye.
Megan. Bye.
Bye now.
Hey, Megan, how do I get on Clubhouse?